Howdy, folks. Welcome to Redneck Gone Green. I'm your host, David Cobb. I am a redneck. You bet I've gone green, and I'm trying to get you to do it too. And a reminder that when we talk about going green on this program, we ain't just talking about environmentalism. We talking about deep ecology, a recognition that everything in life is interconnected. And whether you come at that from a hard science perspective, or you come at that from a deeply spiritual eco-feminist perspective, or like me, you say those are both perfectly valid ways of seeing the world. We know on this program that all of life is connected in a web, and whatever we do to that web, we are ultimately doing to ourselves. And let's just be real, y'all, we are doing it wrong. The capitalism, heteropatriarchy, white supremacy, settler colonialism, the entire way that the Western civilization is organizing society is destroying Mother Earth faster than she can replenish herself. And we have a ever-closing window to do something about it. And that's why Redneck Gone Green exists. And on that cheery note, let's bring in Shane Knight into the conversation.
Hey, David, how are you, man?
Man, I'm good. It was sure good to see you at the Glornamona event there in New York City. I got to tell you, brother, we had some fun, didn't we?
We did. I was really happy to meet all of them and learn more about what they're actually doing, to get an idea of what their strategy is and how it works. And, it was just another, I guess, feather in the hat of like people that are on the ground doing the thing and using narrative storytelling to actually affect real change. I was really blown away. I was glad that they had a good event. A lot of great people were there, and it was really good to see you. And I know that we've had a short run of it, and you've been all over the world the last couple of weeks. It looks like you're back home.
I am back home and happy for it. But I got to tell you, Scotland was amazing. I know you were also doing a little traveling. And folks, I got to let you know that Glornamona is an Irish language revolutionary Republican community organizing group. We're gonna bring those Irish comrades onto this program. But before we go any further, I got to tell you, Shane, I hope you are having as much fun as I am watching the Musk-Trump bromance implode.
Man, it's like a social media soap opera showdown of some sort. So there's like two overly caffeinated toddlers swinging threats at one another. Right? It's entertaining, but at the same time, I'm like, what is this covering up? Because all the headlines left and right, one after the other, I couldn't stand it.
I got to tell you, it like you would think that whenever the richest person in the world and the quote leader of the most powerful country in the world, a fallout like that should be a clash of titans. Instead, we're watching what feels like petulant teenage ninja turtles, right?
Yeah,
Like it's childish bullshit.
Yeah, before the ninja part. you remember that game? It was the early '80s reference. So those of you under 40 probably won't get it. But the Rock'em Sock'em game, I just want to make one with Trump and Musk. I'm sure it would sell like hotcakes and probably not work really well.
Man, just like them. I want to say you to this, man. This is not just about money, though. Like,
No.
there is no doubt that money is a big part of this. But to me, Shane, what I want us to be clear about here, not only on Redneck Gone Green, but our growing community, is that the predatory class and the ruling elite are not in agreement. And that includes the fascists, right? Yeah. There's the techno bro version, and then there are the Stephen Miller Bannon version, and they're fighting it out. I want to be super clear here. Trump is not an ideological fascist, right? But as long as he is being applauded and venerated and his narcissism is being stoked, he is absolutely willing to play the role of a dictator in a fascist government. So make no mistake about it, what we're watching play out has real world implications for us.
Yeah, it sure does. It's just that I think you know, one of the most interesting bits of it that stood out for me, I know we got the Tracking the Crisis newsletter from Mel. We didn't get the video from her this week. Love all the work that she's doing. And for those of you that don't know, the Democracy Collaborative is putting out a weekly newsletter that kind of aggregates a bunch of news. And their tagline, they read the news so you don't have to. When we got the newsletter the other day, I was going through it, looking at it, and you know, the cycle happens so fast that it's just amazing to see what she was able to put together and compile. And then all of a sudden, it just adds on top of itself. And I saw the most interesting thing about the whole Trump Musk bit for me was where Russia basically came out and offered asylum to Elon Musk. It was Putin's hang on, it'll come to me. He was Dmitry Novikov. He was the chairman of International Affairs Committee in Russia. Came out and essentially said, yeah, if things go awry, we'd be happy to offer Elon Musk asylum. And the reason for that was because Putin came out and said, yeah, we're going to need an influx of private funding if we are going to continue their space program. So I found that very interesting. Tracking the Crisis bit that Mel put together, she did a good job of really going, you know, line by line of the back and forth between the two of them. And I could put the link here for everybody if they want to go along and follow that along. And they can find that at trackingthecrisis.org.
And listen, and y'all, if you're not already subscribed, please do. It's a phenomenal resource. And as Shane mentioned, let's take this opportunity to segue. And Edie Marie, who's a frequent viewer listener, writes in, it's a distraction from declaring martial law in LA and Palestine, combining all our data in the government to weaponize it. Because, like, I got to say, what we're seeing in Los Angeles is a precursor. And I love this social media bit. Los Angeles didn't survive fire to be destroyed by ICE. What we're seeing is ordinary community members coming together to defend their community against the federal government. And I'm here for it all day, every day.
Yeah, I think it's a real testing ground. You know, they're pushing the boundaries left and right like they always do. And they're trying to find out how far they can push it. There's so many different things happening around this whole thing. It's like an authoritarian occupation in a way that we're watching unfold. And I've got to say, the bravery and the courage that the Angelenos have been showing, going out and standing up for their community and really doing the work of showing people that there is a line that you shall not cross, or else, you know, there's going to be something we haven't seen in this country in a very long time.
So before we get it, because I'm raring to get Gichi Ya into this conversation, but before we do, Shane, I want to have a conversation with you as a former Special Forces Marine, because The Hill just reported just hours ago that U.S. troops, Marines, 500 Marines are, quote, prepared to deploy to Los Angeles. Now, that shook me, because the deployment of the National Guard is one thing, horrific as it is, but U.S. Marines is something entirely different. So, you know, as a lawyer, I know about the Insurrection Act, and we can talk about that really quickly, because it is a line in the sand. It's almost like crossing the Rubicon for a U.S. president to deploy federal troops domestically. In fact, the only time they can do it is specifically under the Insurrection Act,
Right.
and that's very tightly controlled. So, Shane, as a Marine yourself, as a Special Forces Marine, I just want to ask you, like, I'm fucking terrified when I hear this. Should I be?
To a point, yeah. I mean, this is one of the things that I said in the beginning of the Trump administration, that if X, Y, and Z happens, it's time to rethink our own safety and what we're actually doing here. And this was the first one with the National Guard. Now, when the title of the article said that there were, what they say, 500 Marines prepared to deploy to LA from the Northern Command. Now, most people don't know this, but the President of the United States has the ability to send anywhere between 300 to 500 Marines, special forces, anywhere in the world without congressional approval. They work alongside the CIA, Interpol, and the other conglomerates of intelligence across the globe. But whether or not they heed that call, I don't know. I don't know. I can say that if they do, I don't imagine they will be in any sense aggressive.
Well, I
If
hope
they
you're
were,
right, because
if
I
he
got to
were
say
sending,
this.
I would be more afraid if they said we're going to send 1,500 troops from the Army of, First Cavalry or something like that. I would be more terrified by that. If they're talking about sending in the Marines, the one thing about the Marine Corps over the rest of the armed forces of the United States is they're more heavily trained, more prepared for this. I don't want to say this kind of thing because there's not really this kind of thing, but they're going to keep their wits about them. You know what I mean?
So yeah, I got it. And so I just want to put a fine point on it before we bring in Geechee. The Insurrection Act is the only time where a president has the legal authorities to deploy federal troops domestically. What Shane was getting at is that they can be deployed overseas in that short amount of time. So the situations for deployment can only happen if a state is unable or unwilling to, quote, maintain order or to protect federal interest. Gavin Newsom, as the governor, has specifically said, no, stop sending in, that we've got it. And this is a test. And I do believe that what we're witnessing is Donald Trump being willing to push the boundaries. I do believe that Donald Trump is a fascist. And I do believe that the people of Los Angeles are protecting their community, for which, again, I will lift them up, applaud them, and thank you. And I'll just use this as a segue, Shane, to say this. That is a community acting organically and spontaneously to protect itself and their community members. Now imagine an organized community, what it can do. And with that in mind, it is my distinct pleasure to bring into this conversation Gichi Ya. Gichi is a community organizer. He is active with the community movement builders. He has a long history of doing community organizing work around both racial justice, environmental protection. He's done international work, and I'm just going to own it. A personal friend and a mentor of mine, Geechee Ya. Welcome to Redneck Gone Green, son.
Peace, peace, peace. I don't know about the mentor part, and I don't even know about the Jegna, but thank you for that. Peace. Good to see y'all.
So look at here, Geechee. I'm going to jump right into it, right? Because we had an arc for the program, as we always do. Los Angeles popped off. So I'm just going to ask you, like, I know you heard Shane and I chopping it up a bit. I want to hear from you. What is your reaction to what we're hearing and what we're watching?
I don't know if I have a good reaction like the two of you, but I mean, I just think that those are the examples when you force people to react. You can kind of see people kind of coming together. And I don't remember the city in Ohio where the brothers kind of like commanded the bridge. I think it's showing you that we are a little bit more cellularly ready for something, but I'm just not sure that it's organized efforts, that's something that's to be sustained. And that's what I'm more interested in, seeing something like that sustain. We always have different news, different situations that could give us the good reason or say now it's time to organize. And I think that's just another opportunity for us to see what organization would look like or could look like and see the necessity for it to be more sustainable and ongoing.
Well, I love that. And it does not surprise me at all that that's the approach and the stance that you take. And also I'm going to appreciate the gentle pivot to remind us that on this program, we talking about what is to be done, and that we absolutely react to crises. And I got to say, when your house is on fire, nobody wants to hear the theory of fire suppression, right? Like when your house is on fire, the first thing you do is put that fucker out, right? Put the fire out. And not all of us are in Los Angeles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so we want to acknowledge that the Angelinos are acting appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
But on that fire metaphor, you know, there is something about, do you want to integrate into a burning house?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So my point is this, Geechee, I'm going to back us up for a moment and get back in to some of the work that you've done, right? Mm-hmm. Because like, I want to give the viewers and listeners of Redneck Gone Green a little introduction to the work that you've done, and the work that you've done, both that you're doing now, but what you have done. And I want to back it up to some of the environmental work that you did in the Deep South and the Appalachian area. So I'm going to turn it over to you to give us a little taste of that.
Yeah, so back in 2005, I went to Eastern Kentucky, and my mother was confused on why the hell would I want to go to in the mountains where nobody looked like me would be there. But I went there on a football scholarship, and but also wanted to engage my journalistic endeavors. And while doing that, I got connected to Kentuckians for the Commonwealth, who does deep organizing in the rural areas. Everybody heard of Bloody Harlan and Pike, Knott County, Pikeville, these areas. And they were more focused on finding alternative ways to or generative ways to engage their environment while still maintaining like meeting basic needs. But what I found was, and again, I'm coming from Charleston, South Carolina, and before then I was in Greensboro, North Carolina, spent time in Atlanta before. So I haven't really ever seen white poverty in ever. So, but going there, going in hollers and seeing how people, their life is impacted just to give energy to places like Louisville and New York and these other things. So what we worked on was a lot of the mining issues, right? David, I think I told you I got to see Don Blankenship, who was, I guess, the Elon Musk of coal, who was in West Virginia, and you had to get in the helicopter to get to his house because of all of the shit that he was doing down there on the ground and giving families black lung and sludge pond and all this other, and sinking houses and hospitals. He flew out outside of that to live at his house and watch these things happen. And so for 2005 to 2008, I was working with Kentuckians for the Commonwealth there. And then we got to go to Colombia in the La Guajira region, where they also was suffering from the exploitive nature of coal. But at this coal mine operation was owned by Gary Drummond, who's now in hell somewhere. And it was a little bit different there because in Eastern Kentucky, the workers who were exploited can work and develop black lung, but in Colombia, a lot of the Afro-Colombian people were literally kidnapped and displaced and reported back to the UN that humans didn't even live there. So I got to see on the flip side the true cost of coal, and I think that kind of put me on my eco-socialist journey back in Eastern Kentucky.
So I love it. And I'm going to use this opportunity to lift up Greg Dunn in the comments section, who writes in to say the LA situation and an impending Kent State situation, hopefully not, is proof of the need for self-sustaining and self-defending communities in total solidarity in every sense of the word. And Geechee, that literally, I think, sets you up for me to ask you to talk a little bit about the history of the work that you were doing in Colombia and how it ties to that work that you were doing in Kentucky. Because, folks, if you don't know the Kentuckians for the Commonwealth and Harlan and Bloody Harlan and what Geechee is talking about, it's worth saying that this is another example where white rednecks and black folks find common ground against the predatory class. Now, that's not to say that there ain't some racist ass white folks out there doing some horrible fucked up shit. But it's also true that there are people with Shane Knight and David Cobb's pigment who were on the right side of history. So I don't want to, quote, whitewash anything, pun intended, but I want to talk about there are stories to be told about us working together in solidarity. And Geechee, you've seen that in action, haven't you?
Yeah. So I mean, we got to go to Colombia with Avi Chomsky. She was leading the delegation. Noam Chomsky's daughter. Witness for Peace. It was a bunch of people in the delegation. And like I said, we got to see how, displacement happened. And as you said, like in Eastern Kentucky, there were, again, miners who kind of like third or fourth generation miners, and they actually engage with the coal mining industry very similar to the military. Like it's serving their country and coal keeps the light on. But in the La Guajira region of Colombia, again, it was drastically different because there are literally Afro-Colombian people. I actually got this bag from some Afro-Colombians, Mochila, and they wasn't even given the opportunity to work there. And one of the things that like some of the union leaders were saying, because I think I told you this, David, I got the unfortunate chance to interview Bill Clinton when he was on his campaign trail for his wife, and he was trying to compare the reason why we can't stop burning coal is because China is burning coal at a rate per minute, and we have to compete with them. The dumbest answer I ever heard. But I remember asking one of the union leaders in Colombia, and again, it wasn't me, it was a person from Witness for Peace, and they were saying something about like different uses of energy. And he was explaining like the reason why we can't stop burning coal is because like how the U.S. Government and industry is ran. And so as long as y'all going to keep needing it, we're going to keep burning it. But the goal is to do it in a generative way or kind of use less than you need while you develop a new system. So you just kind of see how like the use of energy is kind of like commonplace around throughout the countries. And the U.S. is normally leading, not in innovative ways, but they are leading in the pollution or the degradation of the planet, and they actually kind of set the tone for even a lot of these other countries who are also relying on some type of income through energy production.
And so while you were there, tell us what you were actually doing in Colombia.
So just like any other delegation, like we was able to kind of tie the struggle between what's happening to the people in Eastern Kentucky and also in the La Guajira region. But as I said, like a lot of the coal mines was owned by, Americans, white Americans. And we was just pretty much there like any other solidarity trip. And
I'm sorry, I actually just realized you were talking about Colombia as in South America,
yeah,
not South Carolina.
Oh no, and there's no coal in South Carolina.
I was about to say, but you said because you mentioned Charleston earlier, and I was sitting here going Colombia. I don't know where the fuck he's talking about.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify. Thank you.
No. Yeah, Colombia, South America, right there under Costa Rica. But yeah, just kind of creating a solidarity effort. Because I think even as we talk about later, like whenever you are engaged in some type of local struggle, it's important to understand that your struggle is much larger, and you have to merge your struggle to, not to say that Colombia was a national liberation movement, but you got to merge your struggles to other global struggles that are fighting the same things. So.
And I love that local to the global. And now I'm going to bring us back, Geechee. And the other thing that I want you to talk about is your work assisting youth organizers in West Baltimore, because you do have a broad depth of experience as both a community organizer and a political educator. So tell us a bit about what you were doing in West Baltimore and why specifically West Baltimore.
So West Baltimore is, if you can remember the Freddie Gray uprising near the Penn North intersection where the CVS is there. But on Pennsylvania Avenue, there's an open air drug market, right? And literally sell any and every drug there is on the block, and the police will let you sell the drugs. And after you make enough money, the police will rob you. So if you ever look up the Gun Trace Task Force in Baltimore, you'll kind of see some of that, and even The Wire, shall I say. But in West Baltimore, there was an organization called No Boundaries Coalition, where the objective was to, again, create coalition of great movement people in different sectors and bring them together into a coalition. And one of the other efforts was to build out young organizers. And so I was tasked with the responsibility of teaching young people how to not only become politically educated and sophisticated, but develop campaigns that center their needs, right? And there's actually a lot of youth serving organizations. Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle probably is the top tier of those people who are doing groundwork there. They were able to stop a youth prison. They was able to redirect tax gains from, I can't remember, not tax gains, but they was able to redirect taxes to go directly to youth programmings, and then they can be in control with the other collective of where those funds get directed. And so there's a lot of work that I think has happened in Baltimore, but with No Boundaries Coalition, one of the objectives was, again, to put some of these people in a coalition. And as all of y'all know, in the U.S., trying to develop a united front or any type of coalition of radical or even progressive organization, everybody has the I and we disease, and it becomes very difficult to do. But we were able to develop a lot of young people in to kind of go into movement work. And this was maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and I'm still in contact with a lot of the young people as they matriculate into adulthood and do work in social realms.
So look at here, Geechee, I've really gotten to know you through your work specifically with community movement builders. And I have heard you say political education is the backbone of sustainable organizing.
Mm-hmm.
And that puts me to mind, of course, the great Paulo Freire, who talked about praxis being reflection and action directed at the structures to be transformed. And we're back to your earlier comment, both about Trump and Musk and Los Angeles and a spontaneous uprising, because without a political education foundation, movements tend to be reactive more than proactive. So I want to give the floor to you as a national communications director of community movement builders, as a political educator, to share a little bit about the work that you're doing in political education and why it is so important.
Yeah, thank you for that. And also I want to make sure that we shout out Amilcar Cabral and Franz Fanon, who Paulo Freire kind of took on and went to Guinea-Bissau to learn from, and that decolonial forms of education is something that they developed and was inspired by.
Nothing comes out of nothing, right?
Yeah. So, but yeah, so as we know, like the objective is to build power, right? We're talking about power. We're not talking about, as Amilcar Cabral says, ideas in someone's heads. We're talking about changing the material condition of people and putting people in a position to be in control of all of their life-sustaining resources and see their children grow old and be beautiful and give more grandkids. And so what that said is we have to engage in a large-scale political education to increase the political sophistication of our people, and which include, hold on, David, it would include a revolutionary approach to electoral politics.
Oh, right? Snap!
I mean, sometimes we don't want to really deal with it, but it would include that, right? And then, but most of all, like, we need to get to a place where we are highlighting the contradictions of capitalism and imperialism that is literally destroying the planet and the people and the things that live in it. But in order to do this, you can't really just go talking about fascism to people or imperialism. Like, people don't got time for that shit. Like, they need to know, how does the sludge and the sewage in my front yard, how did that relate to the shit that you're talking about? And so the education got to be able to center people's material conditions. And then we need to collectively come to the conclusion that private property is bullshit. Water as commodity and food as commodity, education, healthcare, and all this shit is to be sold as bullshit. And then people have to collectively come to that conclusion. And so in Atlanta, specifically in CMB, we are trying or attempting to do that in a place locale. People call it liberated zone theory, and build power within a neighborhood and see if we could utilize our resources and skills to help this community build power so that they can be in charge of the development of their community. But again, all of the resources, the life-sustaining resources, it be at their discretion on how it is utilized. And the reason why we pick Atlanta, specifically the Pittsburgh neighborhood in South West Atlanta, is because this is one of the remaining Black neighborhoods that are finishing or warding off being gentrified. And so it's as you say, theory and practice, which is praxis. I think we have to get past analysis paralysis and all the other things they're saying, but actually show and prove, test your theory out on actual people who won't know what dialectical materialism and Marxism and Lenin, test it out on people and show us how that look. What will happen is you would have to begin to put your platform out there and say, this is something is wrong with this society, and this is how we're going to build a new society, policy formation, and actually build programs to enrich and go enforcement with the policy to actually build a new society. But that will take you being able to build relationships. And if you want to build relationships, you got to be able to resolve contradictions and internal conflict. And I think that's kind of where we're trying to build structures to where not only leadership development, organizing, building capacity, but systems of accountability and creating better systems or better systems than that we are. But what happens, I think sometimes, if we are not careful on the way in which we build organizations and build movements, we tend to like create maybe systems that even worse than the one that we have. So our objective now is to build power in Pittsburgh neighborhood first, and then again duplicate that as we go forward.
So we're at the halfway mark, y'all. This is the point where I remind you that you are watching and or listening to Redneck Gone Green. I'm the host, David Cobb, joined by co-host Shane Knight. Tonight, we are talking to Gichi Ya, who is a longtime community organizer. Currently, he serves as the National Communications Director for Community Movement Builders, a chapter-based organization with, I think, up to 9 chapters across the U.S., all of which are deeply rooted within their communities that help to meet people's objective material needs and do political education at the same time. Geechee, I'm really excited to say that another comrade has dropped into the chat a note that I want to get you to react to. Michael Nugent says, sometimes uprisings can serve as a dress rehearsal for later, more organized contests for power. Our organization is like a scaffold for when broader messages get politicized. I'd love to hear your reaction to that.
Yeah, I mean, I do think about a dress rehearsal and kind of see where you at and see what people respond to. And I don't know, I guess immediately, even as I made the jab about electoral politics, which I also think is a dress rehearsal and a thermometer and assessment, right? You're able to put your policies out and you get to see how many people rocking with it and see how many people not rocking with it. And I think so many times we romanticize armed struggle and the violent part. And I think we begin to forget that there is so much that goes in preparation. And so spontaneity is great. I understand that. But there's so much preparation that goes into a thing. And sometimes we get stuck uncritically celebrating our perception of a final production, right? Even with the spontaneous stuff, there's boiling things that then it escalates and goes to that, right? And so just as well as we don't know the context or the pretext to this spontaneous uprising, that's kind of how we uncritically look at final, or our perceptions of final reactions or final movements or whatever. And I think it's just important whenever you think about dress rehearsal, I think it's important to kind of study those things. And again, even with this, ground or force us to deal with our long game plan. And in that long game plan, as you said earlier, in terms of, I think we should really focus on ecology. In the spaces that I'm in, sometimes I think a lot of times we hyper focus on economy, even if we don't really understand how the economy works. And I just think a long game has to be clear, even with those spontaneous things. And people need to see those spontaneous things connected to something of a long game, or as organizers with organizations who know people are going to be feeling a thing, you got to have something for people to funnel into to actually sustain that energy.
Right on, Geechee. And again, like you, I am a self-described eco-socialist. Edie Marie says, well said, Geechee. The state wants violence to excuse their violent clampdown. Ain't no doubt about that. And I'm also, I can't let your very playful, but it was a little nig at your friend, because we friends and comrades, right?
Mm-hmm.
Around electoral politics, because I also, like you, believe that electoral politics is a tactic that we ought to engage in. The problem with too many liberals and even progressives is that they think that elections is the strategy, as if this racist, sexist, class oppressive state is ever going to allow electoral politics alone. Like, here's how I say it, Geechee. I'm going to engage electoral politics without becoming an electoral fetishist, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we engage in elections in order to expose the contradiction. And if somebody like you or me actually gets elected, then we need to get elected on our program, not some bullshit where we're talking out the side of our mouth. We've got to be willing to explain and expose the interconnectedness between white supremacy, capitalism, heteropatriarchy. We've got to be able to talk about very concrete policies that can make people's lives better. Show, don't tell. And that gets me into and invites me to ask you to talk about how you understand the non-reformist reform approach, not only to community organizing, but to electoral politics. And I'm going to say, I saw my boy Shane, because, you know, he's my Mississippi white redneck. I saw his facial expression. So I'm going to ask you, Geechee, explain how you understand non-reformist reforms, what that is, and how you apply it.
So I remember maybe it was Engels and maybe Marx, all of them. They talked about how universal suffrage is the more longer, boring way to revolution, but it's 10 times more sure, because you get to know when people are ready to get it popping, if you know what I mean. And sometimes people all want to yell gun, and, you know, revolution. And again, and I kind of said it earlier, like the finished product and not knowing what's building up is just wild to me, how people, like, you know, and all of the revolutions that you probably can think of, there was some type of party structure. And even if the party was people coming together and then splitting up later after the revolution, they had a plan for building this new world, right? And so there was a group, a few people that we probably know that's radical and on the left, and they were at a particular rally, and it was at the rally was against a particular candidate, and it was like, we're against them, and they calling the candidate names and all of the other stuff. And then when it's time for the Q&A, somebody was like, okay, well, y'all don't want us to vote for him. Who should we vote for? And the person was like, well, maybe you should run. And like, you know, and I was like, well, I think that's the moment where revolutionaries who are serious should have some type of pathway to this thing. It's almost like going into the, you know, the mall with no signs up to tell you where the hell to go and why and all these other things. And so with non-reformist reforms, it's not only like telling all the policies that you are for, the things that help build a society, but it knows that tactically you have to gain those tactical wins, and multiple things happening. Like, you know, you can change people's material conditions and give them more leverage to fight. You can constantly highlight the contradictions of the state. And you can obviously prove the state has never been a democracy. And again, but those tactical wins help reignite a lot of the energy to move forward. And then it actually legitimizes a lot of the things that you're claiming to do for the people that you claiming to organize. So it's definitely, and I think the phrase says it itself, like non-reformist reforms, right? It would be interesting for somebody who's organizing people and wouldn't want the community that they organize to get universal basic income when they're confused or frustrated why people can't become organizers or organize more when they're at work all day to try to take care of their basic living needs. So non-reformist reform is a declaration that there's tactical ways to make the state capitulate so that you could gain more momentum to actually change a thing.
Well said. I love how Gichi Ya breaks it down without dumbing it down. I'm going to take this opportunity. I don't want to embarrass you, Shane. Check out what Jasmine Banks dropped into the YouTube chat. And for those who are listening on the Spotify recording or just the audio recording, Jasmine Banks says, Shane needs to run. I'd vote for him. How about it, Shane? You're being called out and invited in to a new role for yourself. What do you think?
I mean, it's not something that it's not like I haven't thought about it. Whether or not I want to put my family through that is a different story. But at the same time, it's not a bad idea.
I gotta say, anybody who has got that long flowing hair like you do and rocks the vest like you do, man, you're a good looking candidate. I'll tell you that. And
Well, I'll take that.
Like for real, I think Shane, you could break. You've heard me use the phrase "break it down" without dumbing it down. I think there's a big slice of folk who would respond well to common sense talk about what the hell is going on in this country. Yeah. So I'm just gonna put it out there, and to anybody watching and or listening to Redneck Gone Green, I do think it's important for us to remember that electoral politics is in fact a part of the struggle. And I'm going to say, quote, Edie Marie, who just dropped into the YouTube chat, something that I want to lift up. Edie writes, the Green Party is the electoral arm of the social justice movement. And she's quoting the co-chair of the Arizona Green Party, Zakir Siddiqui. So I'm just saying that this notion of electoral politics without becoming fetishism requires that we engage in real world organizing with a political education lens. And so I'm going to circle back, Geechee. I had the great privilege of seeing a little bit of what y'all are doing in Atlanta with my own eyes. And I want you to talk about the participatory research that you did in that community to prepare people for the kind of programmatic work that y'all were doing, because it's not just you had an idea about what people should be working on. Mm-hmm. I want to back up and invite you to talk about the very intentional, strategic, and deliberate approach that you and your comrades at Community Movement Builders took.
Yeah, absolutely. So Community Movement Builders was in Atlanta since about 2015, and there was different attempts to, build the power here, and things have been changing, right? People coming in, people moving out. And one of the things that we felt was very important is, two things. They say organizers should never do for the people what they can do for themselves, but then also organizers shouldn't get out and ahead in front of the people. And so we develop a pain points research to find out where people are at, how people see their community, things that they find as assets and productive, problems that they want to see solved, but also problems that they actually are committed to help solving, right? And then just learning about what people's needs are. And this pain points research allow us to do multiple things. It allows us to build a relationship with the community, reintroduce ourselves to the community, but it also allows us to find out, again, people's areas of frustration, for us to be able to build a political education curated around their material needs and the things that they understand, like I was saying in the beginning. It also lists out a list of campaigns that we could potentially run. And then it also, as we just talked about, allow you to formulate, which David and some other comrades will help me with, formulate the policies, 10 to 20 policies at least, that directly impact the people and that we would want to advocate to build this new society. And so with the pain point research, it also allow us to, again, find out things like...
Hold on, Gichi, because I think you've just made an important point. You've referred to it a couple of times. I want you to break it down for folk. when you say pain point research, explain both what that is and how y'all did it specifically at Community Movement Builders Atlanta chapter.
Yeah. So what it is finding people's the issues that they have, the areas of frustration, right? Finding out things that they need, why they need it, and even their understanding of that thing. And that will allow us to know, like, let's say, for instance, if we want to fight gentrification, I think knowing how much people understand gentrification and how they understand gentrification is an important thing. So if you go into a community and 90% of the Black folks or whoever in this community actually supports gentrification, your tactics is going to be different than only 40% being for it. And so it just allows the organizers to get a deep understanding and assessment of where the community at, but it also helps kind of with power mapping to see where people at who are doing what type of work. So for instance, there's a great beloved church who we've rebuilt the relationship with. They have a big old food distribution, and you guys got to come and see that. And it didn't make sense for us to do a whole nother food program somewhere else in the corner somewhere, as opposed to going where the people are already at, building a relationship with them, and maybe giving them a more political education to turn that thing into a mutual aid project. And so the pain point research does a couple things, as I said, like the asset mapping, the finding out what people's areas of frustration at, and then organically being able to develop those campaigns based off of people's areas of needs, but also what they are also committed to helping us resolve. So there's a couple things actually that happens in this research, or things that you can get from the research. It's not just some simple, hey, what do you think we should be doing? And be like, oh, we'll do that thing. It's more of an intentional of grounding with the people and giving you an opportunity to talk with the people and reassess or have them reimagine who you are and what you're here to do, but then also put some of the resources that we have behind it. And I know David didn't mention, but we have housing for organizers so that we can remove some of the barriers so people can organize. We have a couple cooperatives that we build in so we can show people alternative systems. And we also have a farm where we could, again, dedicate all our resources to a particular locale to kind of build that power. But before we do any of that, we have to know where the people at and what their needs are. And that's what that research is attempting to do.
And so thank you so much, Geechee. I knew that you would explain it in a way that anybody can understand it, right? Mm-hmm. And what I saw in practice there in Atlanta, again, at the Community Movement Builders, was showing, not telling, right? Like, in other words, you went through a process where you are deeply rooted in the community. You went through a process of identifying pain points for the community. You had some assumptions, but you tested them like a good dialectic materialist, right? You didn't just assume that you had the correct information. You tested it within the community, found out the things that the community was interested in. Lo and behold, housing and food were high up on the list. And Edie, by the way, is loving this program, so thank you for that. Geechee, you getting a lot of love in the comments section on YouTube. So are you, Shane, by the way. Just to let you know, the idea of you running for office apparently is resonating with Redneck Gone Green viewers and listeners. Run, Shane, run.
Yeah, as fast as I can.
But looky here, Geechee, I want to take this opportunity to really get into the work that you are doing in Atlanta as it relates to that relationship with the church, because to me, that's very interesting because y'all, yes, you've got a farm, you're growing food, you're distributing it, but you're also in partnership with what I would call an anchor institution within the community itself, which does not have complete unanimity with our politics, let's say, right? So this is my invitation to you to talk about some of the messiness, right? Like mask no difficulties, tell no lies, claim no easy victories. Mm-hmm. That relationship, talk to us about how that came about and how it's going.
Yeah, so actually, I think it was kind of funny to start out. So I was out doing the pain points research, and now Mama Helen, right? Mama Helen and Mama Margarita, who runs it, And Pastor Slaughter and his wife, they have the church, and then the food bank is behind it. But in my pain points research, like I was going to talk to people, and at the time that I go there, like they thought I was coming there for food, and I was really just coming to help them unload the truck. And at the time I was like, oh, well, no, I was just coming to help. And then I actually helped unload the truck. And at the time I didn't know the people who unload the truck, they can actually get some food. And they was like, do you want any food? I was like, nah, I just really just wanted to help. And I also want to set up a meeting with you and talk. So I sat there and talked with Mama Helen and realized that in this church, right, they have the church. I mean, well, that's the food bank. They have the church up on the hill, and then down there's the food bank. In the food bank, there's refrigerators, food, tons of food. At the bottom is a kitchen, but also a bathroom, a shower for houseless people to take showers. Outside is a garden, and some of our comrades build a food forest. And then upstairs is like a restroom. Well, not restroom, but a room where they got couches and recliners and a TV and computers where you can learn skills. So they literally had a full institution right in this small building. And CMB has had relationships with them in the past, but I think it was just, some people engaging on a podcast, right? Now, the thing about this church, I would probably romanticize and say they are rooted in liberation theology, but the aesthetics is there. So that when you go there, if any people who know African, the Akan tradition, there's Ndinkra symbols all over the place, right? And so you can see that there's people kind of like African centered, right? And then the pastor is just a real person, right? And he understands the material conditions of his community, and he's building things around there to make sure he meet the needs, not just emotionally, spiritual. And even if you go to the church, right, on a Sunday, they are grounding in things that even Marx will help ground in, right? So I do think they are very similar to our politics, probably not all the way, but I think with that church, because they're supposed to be a pastors association, Pittsburgh neighborhood, a historical fact, they have more churches per capita than any other small location in the country. And so Pastor Slaughter is a good partner in actually making sure that the other pastors in the churches measure up, right? Level up to where he's at. And so they're doing phenomenal work. And we are honored to be in a space where we could actually add to their work. And right. So now, again, when I say Mama Helen, I mean, our relationship is a way where, this is like my mama. And again, I don't know the details of the relationship with CMB before, but I don't think it was like, like that. But, anytime that she says, she's like, well, Geechee, I trust you. And anything that you need, you can, we'll give it to you. Like, for instance, tomorrow they got this big ass box truck that I'm going to use because we got to move some stuff around in the community. And so the relationship is really, really like that. And there was a couple of people who came with the tour that we took. We was able to go meet Mama Helen. Now, David, I don't know if you was there, but I would say the relationship is on a fast upswing to doing some more incredible things. And we're actually helping meet their needs that they can't reach in terms of reaching more of the community. Because in this place, it's in one part of the community, and just the people in that like radius know, but a lot of the community don't even really have access to it. Even though there's lines and longs and people coming from different parts of the city. And so we actually help further their mission and actually develop more programs. And yeah, I just think it's a perfect type of connection. And again, it comes from hitting the ground, right? Touching grass, as they say, and meeting people and talking to people and seeing what they do, seeing what's important to them, and then seeing how what you do connects with them and scaling it up. The community likes to see these different leading orgs or leaders actually work together. And that will definitely inspire them to also come together.
And speaking of inspiration, Geechee, we're coming to the end, but I would be remiss if I did not invite you to tell us about the book, Raising Me.
Oh, dang, I didn't even know you was going to ask that.
I know you didn't, right? And so, hey, for those of you who are watching, then you can see the man is blushing. He's squirming right in front of me. Geechee, tell us what Raising Me is.
So Raising Me was one of the written 2 children's books. One of them published. The second one is, in the works of trying to be published and not captured by Amazon. But Raising Me is a story about me growing up and me having a makeshift village, right? I started picking different people who I thought was incredible and who I wanted to model my life after. And they were actually real people. So when we did a community building book signing, and sorry, the dog next door, he likes to bark. We did a community building book signing, and all of them actually came on stage. So like the people that you see illustrated, they actually are real people, and they came on stage. And again, the goal is to rebuild the relationship between youth and elders and build some type of synergy. And ironically, Heritage Station is a apartment complex here that externally it looked like it's new, but internally is like pissy hallways. And if you ever been in New York inside the projects, and one part is for regular residents, if shall I say, and the other part is for old folks. So it's literally a split. And every couple of months they get a new management company that treats them like shit. And so one of the things that we found in the pain point research is we need to probably organize some tenant protection, be it a tenant union or whatever. But one of the catches is the youth and the elders they don't like each other. So maybe that book and the effort of rebuilding that relationship actually will come in handy, because it's very important. Young people don't trust old people. Old people don't trust young people. And that book was an offering to like facilitate that conversation.
And so Raising Me is available online. Y'all check it out. I don't want to out you, Geechee, but it ain't hard to figure out. But I want to lift you up and really appreciate you. Any last thoughts you want to share with Redneck Gone Green before we wind this puppy down?
Yeah, no, I'm deeply appreciative to come on the platform. Shout out to everybody, anybody want to connect, reach out to me at all capacities, all ways you can. And just, I think it's important for us to engage in the type of organizing that build a deep sense of community. That means relationship building, organizing around and organizing away contradictions, getting rid of opportunism, which seems to be a plague in the movement right now. And just getting in a place where, and then I also think there's a lot of unproductive, highly funded forms of organizing that we should readjust. And so I just challenge people to not only join an organization, but forcing those organizations to live to their ideals until you have to outgrow and build new organizations.
I got to say, you reminded me of my dear friend in Washington, D.C., Head Rock, who's a rapper. And he's got a line that goes like this: if you want to change your situation, you better join an organization. Yeah. So look at here. We hope, and Gichi Ya, I want to thank you so much for coming on. And I want to thank you, Shane, as always, for co-hosting this program. But most importantly, I want to thank you, the viewer and listener of Redneck Gone Green. We continue to grow this audience, but we're not growing this audience just for Shane and I to be able to talk to folks. We're trying to help provoke and win a peaceful revolution. We are committed to restructuring this society. We want to invite you to join us on Substack, Redneck Gone Green. We are honored to be a program on the Democracy at Work platform. And Shane, with that, I'm going to kick it to you for a word or two about the growing Democracy at Work platform and how folks can stay connected there.
Yeah, you can always go to democracyatwork.info to find out more about what we've got going on. There's a lot of things happening. Usually the summer months for us are rather slow, but this year we've decided to put it upon ourselves to do about 3 times as much of the heavy lifting that we normally do during the summer. So it's been an exciting moment for us, especially starting when I went to Atlanta and meeting Geechee and, starting the whole Friends of Democracy at Work program to help organizations like community movement builders and others that are doing things that are important on the ground to give them a voice and an opportunity to reach people that they couldn't normally do. So again, just go to democracyatwork.info, learn more. And Gichi, it's great to see you and hear you. Thanks for coming on, brother. And I'd vote for Gichi too.
I'll end it with this. I vote for Gichi, says Judith. For president, his energy and good-hearted intelligence is what we need. And I want to invite y'all to join us next week, every Monday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, Our guest next week is going to be Sonali. Sonali, Rising Up with Sonali. She is a longtime media journalist, community organizer, and she is literally been reporting in Los Angeles. So that's a show not to be missed. Peace, y'all.
Peace.
Ciao.